today I'm going to tell you why you don't need a weight belt. Hey, welcome back to Holistically Healthy TV. I'm your host, Jim Burdumy, and today is episode 22 of Holistically Healthy TV, and I'm going to show you why you don't need a weight belt. No, I'm not going to throw it again. What we're going to talk about today is the core, the inner unit. There's 4 muscles that make up the core without peeking, and most people just think that the core is the six-pack muscles, which is the rectus abdominis, and they're wrong. So I'm going to show you why you don't need a weight belt, because you can activate your inner weight belt if you know how to use your core correctly. Okay, so let's get right into it. The core is made up of 4 muscles, as I said. The diaphragm is actually one of them. So I've talked a bit about breathing in some of my previous videos and said how you need to activate your diaphragm when you breathe. Well, when you use your diaphragm when you're breathing, you're actually using part of your core. So that's really important. And the diaphragm and the pelvic floor actually have a working relationship together, because when the diaphragm contracts, the pelvic floor opens up, and then the pelvic floor will contract, and then the diaphragm relaxes. So those two, and you can even see that they're almost shaped similar, right? They have a working relationship. You have the transverse abdominis, which is really the inner weight belt. That wraps around the body like a weight belt and helps to kind of keep everything nice and tight, and also helps to stabilize the low back, which connects into the multifidus muscles, which are in the back of the body right here, the lower back. So when the multifidus muscles are compressed into the low back, that will help to stabilize the entire core. And the way you activate the transverse abdominis is by drawing the belly button in. Most people, when you tell them to draw their belly button in, they couple that with inhalation. And because most people have that upside down or inverted breathing pattern, like I shared with you in one of my other previous videos, most people will say, we'll do this. They'll say, you'll inhale, and they'll lift up the chest, draw the belly button in, and try to suck the belly in at the same time. In their mind, they're coupling drawing the belly button in with lifting the chest and sucking the belly in. But really, you should just be able to do it naturally without actually having to breathe. You could just hold your breath and then be able to draw your belly button in, and that shows that the mechanism is actually working. But why don't you need a weight belt? I am actually going to put it down. Why don't you need a weight belt, or how can you use your transverse abdominis like a weight belt, especially under heavy loads? Okay, so if you're just doing a breathing squat or something like that, you're not necessarily going to need to stabilize your low back. But if you're picking up something, whether it's outside or whether it's heavy weight in the gym, you're going to need to stabilize the low back. So let's say you're doing a deadlift. Okay, so if you're doing a deadlift, before you go down into the deadlift, if you're holding the bar already, before you go down into the deadlift, you're going to want to activate your transverse abdominis, and there's a way to do that. I'm going to show you. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a big belly breath in, which the diaphragm is going to push down and compress all of your organs. So you're going to have that expansion of the belly. Now, once all of this is expanded, now you're going to hold that breath and you're going to draw the belly button in. So you're almost kind of blowing this section up here, and then you're sucking it and compressing it in. And all of that, you're basically using your organs as like a balloon, and you're compressing all of your organs into the low back and drawing everything in nice and tight. So now that creates what's called hoop tension in the core musculature. So when you have that hoop tension, hoop meaning like, in a circle round, when you have that hoop tension, everything's nice and tight. So then you can go into the deadlift, you hold that throughout the whole movement there, and then as you're coming up out of the deadlift through the sticking point, which is the hardest part of the movement, then you would exhale forcefully through your lips. And that's going to create, when you exhale forcefully and not just like that, or just like that, if you exhale forcefully like you're blowing through a straw, like, hopefully that wasn't too loud with the microphone, but if you're blowing forcefully like that, that is actually keeping a lot of tension in the rectus abdominis and in the core musculature. Okay, so that's keeping everything really nice and tight. So the 4 muscles are, again, the transverse abdominis that wrap around the body like a weight belt. You have the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, and the multifidus. These are the muscles that you want to focus on conditioning and building up, because these are the muscles that actually make up the real core, and it's not just about the pretty six-pack muscles that everybody really wants to have through crunches and all of that kind of stuff. So If you are working these muscles, you're strengthening your core, you're learning how to use your transverse abdominis the way it's meant to be used, and you don't need to have things like a weight belt to help to stabilize you, because really when you use a weight belt, you're trying to artificially push everything in and compress everything together. You're essentially trying to do what the transverse abdominis naturally does, or would naturally do if someone knows how to activate it. But here's the problem. If you're out, let's say, helping a buddy move on the weekends, you're helping them pick up a couch to put it into the moving truck. If you're not using your weight belt, if you're not thinking to yourself, hey, I'm going to use my weight belt, even though that couch might not be super heavy, if you're used to having that weight belt do the work for you of activating the transverse abdominis or taking the place of the transverse abdominis, you could throw out your back. And this happens to people all the time. Well, they'll go and do something, whether it's even just pick up a bag of mulch in the garden, and they'll lift it the wrong way. And the fact of the matter is that their transverse abdominis isn't actually activating. Their belly button isn't drawing in to activate that mechanism whenever they bend down to get something, or whether they're under a heavy load. So even though it might only be a 50-pound bag of mulch, and it might not be likely for someone who's really, really strong, but sometimes it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I would encourage you to use the technique that I just showed you. If you're using something heavy, take a deep breath in, fill the belly with air, draw the belly button in as you have that expansion in the belly, and then you would do your squat, do your deadlift, do your bent over row, whatever heavy lift or big movement that you're about to do. This is why you don't need a weight belt. I hope this information was helpful for you. Please subscribe to me on YouTube, or if you're watching this on Facebook, please give it a thumbs up and give it a share. Question of the day for you: I want to know what movement you're actually going to test this technique out with. So whether you love to do the deadlift, whether you love to do squats, whether you love to do, like I said, bent over rows, whatever movement that you like to do, what exercise are you going to try this technique out with? And you're going to ditch the weight belt if you're using one. Please connect with me on social media. This way you know exactly when I have a new video coming out. Tune in again, because together, you and I, we're getting healthier every day.